8:35. So why don't we go ahead and get rolling this morning? Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Good morning. Morning.
Good
That was
morning.
halfway. That was halfway decent. Halfway. Well, welcome to our second edition of the virtual town hall meeting. Of course, the purpose of these, we formed a task force a few weeks ago to really start focusing on recovery and reopening. As we know in our business community, there are certain businesses that have been open through this COVID situation and are really looking to recover and, get back to some form of normalcy. The new normal, as a lot of people are calling it. But then we also have some of our businesses that had to shut down for a while and are in the process of reopening. So we wanted to start this series of town hall meetings to really address all the different resources that are out there for our business community, not just our chamber members, but our entire business community. And when I say that, we're even reaching out to businesses outside of our county borders. So we've really been working hard to put these together to really provide our folks with the right information they need, right connections they need, right people to go to for all the resources that are out there. So a couple of housekeeping notes with this morning's meeting. If you have questions, we will be asking each one of the speakers questions at the end of their presentation. So please use the chat room to provide those questions, and we'll be vetting through those. And then our wonderful events team will be feeding them to me so that I can ask the speaker the questions. Depending on how many we get, I do want to let you know we may not be able to get to all of them for auspices of time, but please submit those questions through the chat room. And please do, through the chat room, make sure that you keep it to a question format. We want everyone that's on the call this morning to be able to focus on the information that the speaker is providing. So just submitting the question would be ideal without a lot of additional verbiage. I'll just put it that way. I want to thank Ray Knott and Atlantic Union Bank for being our presenting sponsor today. As I said, this is a second in our series. We will be having a wrap up after this meeting with our task force and talk about the continuation of this series. And if that's something that your organization may be interested in sponsoring one of the future ones, please contact me through the chamber or at joe@faukierchamber.org if you're interested in that, and I can give you more of the details. Let's see. Ray, is there anything else that I'm missing before we get into the speakers?
I don't think so, Joe. Thank
Awesome. Well, we've got a great set of speakers this morning, really focused on different areas of this recovery and reopening. So I will start off by introducing my good friend, Mr. Miles Friedman, who is the Executive Director of our Fauquier Economic Development Department. And he's going to share with us all the different resources that the county has to help us during this recovery and reopening. So Mr. Friedman, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hopefully you won't be sorry. I've promised to be brief, and I will be, but let me start by saying I think this is one of the most challenging times for businesses. And those of you that are business owners, you don't need me to tell you that. But, in some ways, when this all started, things were fairly simple. You shut down. You were under orders. People were under orders to stay home. As we have evolved, and now we reach the point where there's partial reopenings and soon to be full reopenings, there are so many decisions about when to open, whether to open fully. If to open fully, are we going to be able to recoup enough revenue to support the costs of opening fully? I know paramount for those of you who are business owners is, how do I keep my employees and my customers safe? And in a community like Fauquier County, where there is so much sense of community and such a sense of caring, I think that's a real challenge. I've talked to business after business who says, money is of course an issue, I need to survive, but I got to make sure my employees are safe. And I can't encourage customers to come unless I feel that they're as safe as they can be. So there are a lot of tough challenges right now, and the county is making an effort to address as many of those as we can, given the limitations that we have. So one thing I want to point out is, You notice I have the most colorful and creative background behind me of any of the speakers. I say that boldly because nobody else is using a preset background, so I feel comfortable in saying that. But it occurred to me that symbolically, what we're hoping, and there's something about these azaleas that makes them special. They're late bloomers. So after everything else in my yard has bloomed and gone away, the flowers have gone away, these guys start to open up. I'm hoping that we're going to, bear with me with the metaphor here, but we're hoping that what's going to happen, and what is beginning to happen, is a reblooming of our business community. Been through a tough time, a challenging time, challenges lay ahead, but we'd like to see a reblooming of the business community. So, what is the county doing about it? Well, there are certain ways we can help. And I'm going to start by ticking off the things we requested as part of the CARES Act allocation. As you may know, the CARES Act has not approved any money specifically for state and local governments, but it has set aside money that state and local governments can use to address the needs of the community in responding to COVID-19. And so our leader, Paul McCullough, who is the county administrator, went to the board at the last board meeting and said, here's how we propose to use at least some of our allocation, all of which, by the way, has to be spent by the end of the calendar year. And included in that was a substantial portion for business and economic development, and included 6 basic ideas. One is marketing. We've got to get the word out, not only that we're reopening, but reopening as safely as we possibly can. And I'll talk about that more. 2, we need one-on-one counseling for our businesses. And given the fact that ours is a wonderful but very small staff, we partner with our SBDC, our Small Business Development Center. Christine, I'll tell you this, I said in a meeting yesterday that I thought you should be nominated for sainthood for the work that you and your team are doing with our local businesses. So we've asked for more money to support the efforts of the SBDC for one-on-one counseling. 3, we've asked for additional funding for our emergency grants program. We've given out $50,000 in grants. 25 of that came from the Economic Development Authority, 25 directly from the county. We were able to give out with that $50,000 about 26 grants at about $2,000, $1,500 to $2,000 a piece. Those were done quickly, fairly easily, very short application, very few requirements other than being in good standing with the county. But as we now have requested $50,000 additional funding, we're pointing those grants and developing the requirements now a little bit more towards reopening and recalibrating and readjusting to the new realities. We hope to have those available fairly soon. All of this has been approved in principle by the board, but has to go back with all the specifics for final approval. And we're moving as quickly as we can, as are they. The 4th thing we requested was the ability to help businesses with a healthy reopening and with getting the word out that they're being healthy. I could talk forever about rebuilding consumer confidence, but if you have the patience to read through the academic and economists and financial analyses of a potential recession, everyone says the key is restoring consumer confidence. And there's no automatic way to do that. But we're doing 2 things here, and these are still proposed until final approval from the board. 1, we are looking to purchase hundreds or possibly even thousands of bottles of hand sanitizer, masks for employees, and masks for patrons of the businesses that we can distribute at no cost to businesses who need help in making sure that their employees and their customers are safe. That's the first part of it. The second part is, and frankly, we are unashamedly copying, borrowing, stealing ideas from neighboring communities, but we're looking for a way to get the word out that businesses here are committed to healthy opening. And we're working on several ideas. I can't really talk about the details yet because that's still in development. But we want to promote the ability of businesses to open in the healthiest manner and expand in the healthiest manner possible, and to get the word out that they're doing that. We also set aside some money to work with Lord Fairfax Community College on a training program, which they've developed called the Fast Access Program, that can get credentials taught and coursework and award of credentials quickly to workers, because one of the biggest challenges we're facing is the workforce prepared? So whether your business is reopening under different conditions or taking on new product lines or new services or a different way of doing business, and so many of you are looking more to the internet as a way of safely operating and attracting business, some with great success. Many have used it as a temporary measure and are now adopting it permanently. Your staff, be it existing staff or new staff, have got to be trained in whatever techniques or products or services you're taking on. So the workforce, we can't ignore the workforce, and we're very supportive of Lord Fairfax and their efforts to address those issues. Last but not least, under consideration is the possibility of assisting your chamber. I can't emphasize enough how important the chamber is at a time like this. And, you know, I'm not getting paid to do a commercial for the chamber, but I got to tell you that I've worked in most of the states in this country as a consultant, and I can come back and say this is one of the best chambers of commerce I've ever gotten to work with. This town hall series is a terrific idea. It's been developed by volunteers and chamber staff. The idea of getting the word out, but also bringing people together. I'm going to talk about that a little bit too. But do support your chamber and take advantage of the services they're offering. So what's the way ahead as far as the county is concerned? We're trying, this is not an official slogan, not an official mantra, but we're trying to help with careful and creative opening. Careful and creative. Careful so that we can restore consumer confidence, because without it, there is no successful reopening or getting back to anywhere near normal. People talk about the new normal. The underlying idea behind the new normal is restoring consumer confidence. And of course, we're facing a double challenge right now, because if you watch either the news or the late night comedy shows, you know there have been spikes in almost half, or maybe by now more than half of the states are seeing the biggest infection rates and some of the biggest, more serious infections ever since this whole thing started. So we not only have to explain that we're following guidelines, but we have to explain that great creative ideas have been used by our businesses, and we want to get the word out about that to make people not only be safe, but to feel safe. I mean, after all, isn't that what it's all about? You're going to go out to restaurants if you feel safe. You're going to go shop in our local retail establishments if you feel safe. We have a terrific economy. We're an economy of small businesses. We have some great big national and international firms here. They're important. But this more than any, we're now, in addition to working with the other counties in the Piedmont region, we're also a member of the Northern Virginia Economic Development Alliance. More than any of the other 9 jurisdictions in that alliance, we are definitely a county of small businesses. And while in some ways that can be fragile, because small businesses can be fragile, at the same time, it's an economy that doesn't have the risk of suddenly one company leaves and your economy is done. So it's, some of my colleagues in Northern Virginia said, Miles, it's easy for you to target small businesses because that's what you guys depend on. We in Northern Virginia have a different problem, where most of them depend on huge businesses that pay a ton of money in taxes. And if those businesses are hurting, suddenly their economies are really fraught with challenges. So I think it's an advantage to have a small business-based economy. I've referred to small businesses as the beating heart of our local economy. We want to be here to work with you. We want to be here to help you. We want to be here to publicize the good things you're doing. We want to put resources like our grant. We also have an emergency loan program. Very easy terms, very short application. Thank you to our local banks and our EDA for funding that. And the banks administer the program at no charge to us or to the customers. So these are the things we're trying to do. And I guess I'd want to close with the thought, pulling together, this is corny, I know, but I'm a corny guy and I'm old. So corny people get cornier as they get older, more forgetful as well, but especially cornier. Pulling together is what we have going for us the most. And I have never seen the spirit of cooperation, coordination, and communication that this crisis has generated. And what so many people are saying is, if anything good has come from this crisis, it's the degree to which we're depending on each other. We're sharing information. We're forgetting about competing. Back to this Northern Virginia group. It took 40 years for the Northern Virginia counties to band together into an organization of some kind. And now the degree of sharing, and when one of these counties gets a big win, we all celebrate. It's a win for Northern Virginia. The Piedmont is the same way now, you know, but Northern Virginia was an especially tough challenge. And yet we're talking 2 and 3 times a week, aside from formal meetings. We're sharing ideas. We're doing business surveys. One county develops a terrific business survey. We all copy it word for word. One county comes up with an innovative idea. We all copy it, and we want to share. That, to me, if Northern Virginia competitors for probably since post-World War II can actually begin sharing ideas and rooting for each other, that to me brings hope to the whole issue. So, you know, networking is so important. The Chamber's doing a great job of that. The county's trying to facilitate that as much as we can. Regional organizations are trying to facilitate it. Nothing works without funding, of course, and funding is helping in some ways, but the spirit is what encourages me. So I end on this note of optimism. Keep that spirit, keep sharing, understand that, you know, they say a rising tide floats all boats, right? I think that's true. A declining tide may also sink all boats. So let's continue to help each other and talk to each other. And if you have ideas or things you'd like to see from the county other than our hub site, the information we disseminate, the grants and loans and so forth, I'm all ears. You know, my door's always open.
Excellent. Thank you, Miles. And I guess you covered everything so well, nobody has asked any questions yet. So
Either
just
that or I bored them to sleep, you know.
Just to remind everybody, if you have any questions, please do it through our chat room so we can ask the speakers after their presentation. And thank you, Miles, for all those kind words about the Chamber. And you're right, we have an amazing community. And you're also right about our next speaker, Christine. She is right up there with my wife for sainthood. But I did want to real quick, a couple of quick things before we turn it over to Christine. And she's actually going to be doing dual presentations for us this morning. But I did want to remind or let everybody know that we are recording this this meeting this morning. So if you talk to somebody that said, oh, I wanted to be on that or whatever, please put them in touch with the Chamber so that we can provide them a recording of this event so they can experience it later on. I also wanted to thank the task force that I mentioned before. And I want to get back to my gallery view, but it's not allowing me. But those of you that are on the task force, I was going to mention you individually, but I don't have you on my full screen. There we are. First, I want to recognize Rini before she has to get off the call and go to a staff meeting with the Mason Enterprise Center. She's on our task force. Christine is on our task force. Been a big help with that. Ray Knott with Atlantic Union Bank is actually our chair of this task force. Gary Grenter with Alpha Flow is also on our task force, along with Michelle Coe with Blue Sky Phoenix. Miles is on our task force as well. One of our newest additions to our task force, very welcome, Holly with Community Development with the county. Lorna's on our task force through the PATH Foundation. I think I saw Jen on the call. This is one of her last events. Jen Swigert with C&E, Center for Not-for-Profit Excellence. Tuesday will actually be her last day. Her and her husband have moved to North Carolina, and we're going to miss her, but I think she'll be okay down there. So I want to thank everybody. If there is anybody, I think I did see Charity Furness with the Experience Old Town Warrington on the call. So thank you all on this wonderful task force, and there's a few folks that couldn't join us today. So really want to thank everybody for all your hard work. And with that, let's see, Miles, I don't know, we need a title for Christine. Queen?
I've been called lots of things.
But no, those of you that have worked with Christine, she is an amazing asset to the Lord Fairfax Community College Small Business Development Center. And she has been a plethora of information for us during this whole COVID process, pandemic, and just been amazing with providing us with information, with meeting with people one-on-one. So without further ado, Christine, take it over.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Joe and Miles, for the kind words. My husband and I have been married for 29 years, And we got married, of course, when we were like 12, you know. The only one that has ever called me a saint before is my mother-in-law. So thank you everybody for joining us today. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Kriz, the director of the Lord Fairfax Small Business Development Team. We are hosted by Lord Fairfax Community College. We are funded through the Small Business Administration and local economic development authorities. And so we are passionate about helping people start, manage, grow, or sell their small business. We've got a team of experts who all own or have owned small businesses before, and we meet one-on-one. We provide training classes and we provide resources online. And so what that looks like is your tax dollars at work for us to provide free business consulting to you. Typically, we see about 425, 450 people a year. And since March 15th, we have trained 790 people, and we have met one-on-one with just under 1,000 people through telephone, through Zoom meetings. It's been pretty amazing. There are 5 part-timers now, and myself, I'm full-time. So if I haven't met you before, please, I'd love to meet with you. We do everything from helping you create a loan package and business plan to anything that has to do with business. So could be finance, could be marketing, social media, operations, distribution, up to selling your business. So we have been so grateful to economic development and the chamber and the other people of the task force for coming alongside and helping out. They speak very kindly of me, and I must speak very kindly of all of them as well. Like they say, if a blessing has come from this COVID, it's been everyone coming together. And I truly think that it has been okay to say, I don't know, and I have a question. And I think that is so present now versus before COVID. We were not prideful, but we wanted to be seen as experts. And this has caused us to all have to say, we don't know. And I think that has added to our ability to join together. And so as a business owner, I want to give you permission to say, I don't know. We get a question once a week and we study business all the time. And, you know, at least once a week, we say, I don't know, I've got to look that up. So if you're a business owner, you don't have to know all the answers, and we are here to help you. So I want to challenge you with just 2 questions before I go into an e-commerce presentation. So one is, how will you market to your customers now? And if you're not a business owner, please share this with people you know who own small businesses. You know, customers have changed. Are you talking with them? Are there things that they need now that they didn't need before? Or maybe they want your product in a different way. Maybe ordering online has become their preference. So just because we're reopening, we don't want to let that fall by the wayside. So I ask you, you know, are you talking to your customers on a regular basis to find out what they want and what their preferences are? Because those that pivot and talk and have conversations with their customers are the ones that are going to come through this economic crisis. The second is, my dad always told me, if you make a mistake, it's not a failure if you learn from it. He also, for those of you who were on at the beginning, he was very smart. My first car was a 2-seater Fiat, so I couldn't get all my girlfriends in the car with me, and I swear it only had like a go-kart engine in it. It only got up to 30 miles an hour. He knew me well. So my question to you is, you know, what have you learned from this? What will you take from this and put in place so if this happens again or another disaster strikes, or when, that you're prepared? So do you have a continuing operations plan in place? Have you communicated that with your employees? Number 1, do you have a cash flow plan, a cash flow strategy? And what I mean by that is, are you looking ahead 3, 6, 9 months, a year at, if you keep the same income, if you have to take a 30% cut, a 50% cut, what does that look like? And if you hate numbers, we're here to help you with that. But you have to have a plan in place. So if and when something happens, you don't make rash emotional decisions instead of decisions based on a well thought out plan. So if you have cash flow questions or financial questions, please reach out to us. We're here. We've got easy tools that we can help explain it and run models for you. And we'd love to do that with you. Diversification, is that something that you learned? You know, what may have worked before may not work now. And maybe you're finding that, hey, I could sell a webinar online, or I could sell a workbook, or I could sell my cooking videos instead of just selling my retail products in a store. So diversification, you know, what and how do you offer it? Maybe you're looking at improving or solidifying supplier relationships. And that was a big hit to a lot of folks. And then last but not least, e-commerce. So for those of you in business who are not involved in e-commerce, you must do this. And so that's what I'd like to go into next. If that's okay, Joe, is it okay if I go right into that?
Christine, you're good.
Okay, awesome. So I am trying to share my screen, and I apologize. I can't see where I can share my screen.
It should be at your bottom bar, Christine.
Yep, thank you. I have video settings. I don't have a, oh, here we go, sorry. My apologies. I need an IV of coffee this morning. I'm so excited about going on vacation. I woke up at like 5 a.m., so I'm still drinking coffee. All right. So I want to talk to you about e-commerce. And if you already have a website, it may be time for an update. If you are not selling, maybe it's something you should consider. And if you consult or have small business friends, this presentation is also going to be great for you because you can share it with others. They have my presentation, so feel free to what we call R&D, rip and deliver. Feel free to use it. So e-commerce is so important because 1.8 billion people are using e-commerce. And this was pre-COVID, so I guess that number is even higher now. So that's 1/4 of the world's population. So if you're thinking your products are only good to sell locally, you're losing out on a whole big market out there. And it's not as scary or hard as you think it might be to sell all over the world. So one thing we learned as people got comfortable with teleworking and being online, we got more sassy about what we want, right? As customers, we're very picky. We want to buy what we want, when we want to buy it, and we want to pay for it how we want to pay for it. So just because we're entering phase 3 in Virginia, please do not let your online store go by the wayside. And here is why. So if I may love your retail store, I may want to get out and I may come in, but I also may wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning and realize, oh, I need to order this. And that gives me another option to buy from you. It's a way to grow your business, to poise your business for the future. If we happen to have to shut down again, you're ready and you're not trying to scramble and get it done at the last minute. The other thing is, I may love coming to a brick and mortar place, but I may be on vacation and I run out of that special product that only you sell. If I can order it from there and it's on my doorstep when I get back, that's awesome. So there are people out there who don't want to come in. And the thing is, you need to build trust with your customers. And this comes again from talking with them and finding out their preferences. How do they want to buy? Maybe they want curbside pickup. Maybe they're okay with coming in, but maybe they want to buy online. So some things to remember when you're doing e-commerce and you have an online store. I want you to, you don't have to close your eyes because I hate it when people ask me to do that, but I want you to picture when you go into a retail store, or a business, you're drawn in by the entryway, right? There's a sign, there's colors. There may be marketing displays in the window that call you to come in. When you go into the store, there's a culture. There's somebody there to ask questions. Most of the time, you can touch and see the product. You can see other people's reactions to the products, right? And they make the checkout, the cash register, very easy to get to, correct? And there are different options based on how we like to pay. And we've been taught that if we have a return, then we take it up to the cash register or to customer service, correct? So there's a whole experience when we go into a physical location. My challenge to you today is to remember when you do an online store, it should be consistent with that real life physical experience. If you don't have a physical space, you offer a service, the same things apply to you. So when people are online, how are you attracting them? So you should be checking your, Google Analytics to see, how are people finding you? When they get to your website, what is their first impression? If your website looks like the one on the left from the 1990s, you need to update it, okay? The one on the right here looks nice, and it tells me exactly what I'm looking for and if it's something that I need. A tip on website is people typically go top left corner, top right corner, bottom left, bottom right. The top half of the page is where you want your primary information because we're lazy and we don't like to scroll down. So is your website, are you checking your analytics? So you look at your website and you see people are looking at stuff and they get to the cart, but they're not checking out. You need to be looking at those website analytics to try and figure out what's happening. And if you haven't lately gone in and tried to buy a product from yourself, please do that. Go in as a customer and make sure all the links work. See how easy or difficult it is to buy from you. The rule of thumb is within 3 clicks, you should be able to get to your website and check out. A beautiful thing about websites is you can add testimonials, add videos so people know, how do other people feel about this? Is your call to action bright and big, and is it calling you in? Is it easy to buy? So if your customers don't want to use a credit card and want bank draft, are you offering that? If they want Google Pay or Apple iPay, are you offering those options? And then last, what is your return policy? So if I get something shipped to me and it's broken, am I going to get my money back or am I stuck with it? Your website is all a way to build trust and create an experience. And the beauty of it is your website can be up while you're sleeping, and it can be operating and making revenue for you while you're in your physical store or you're somewhere else doing something. So when you're selecting a platform, there's a couple of things that I want you to think about. And if you already have a website, even if you're a service provider, I want you to think about the things that you may need to improve, or maybe it's time for an update if you already have a website. So what are you selling? So there are some platforms that are better for selling digital products, for example. Some online platforms are great for selling up to 25 products, but maybe your business has grown and now you need a different type of online platform store to handle those extra products. Different online platforms or stores offer different payment methods. So depending on what your customers prefer, you want to offer as many as you can, obviously, but you want to make sure especially that you're offering the one your customers want. And then last but not least, do you want to sell across multiple platforms? So you may be selling on your website, but you may also want to sell on Facebook or Amazon or eBay or Etsy. The online platform that you use, depending on your needs to sell on these other places, some online platforms are more limited than others in what they offer and the amount of other places you can sell. So now I want to talk to you about just a few of the most popular online store or platforms and give you some tips and hints. So if you have a Wix, a Weebly, Squarespace, or GoDaddy, chances are you may already have an online store, and that's great. They all offer an online store feature, and they're all pretty good. And I encourage you to go online and compare them to see if they offer what you need. All of them have templates and different themes you can use. And a plugin, what you see here are these add-on platforms. So an example of a plugin might be, there's one called TaxJar, where you have your online store. This will compute the tax payments for you, and sometimes it can even submit the tax payments for you. So a plugin is something you add on to help manage your business on the back end. Some of them have more plug-in ability than others. So if you have a WordPress website, you are part of 1/3 of the world that has a WordPress website. And WooCommerce is an add-on that works with WordPress. It is the biggest. It does many, many things. So it works with TaxJar, what I just explained. It offers event management. It has a good SEO, search engine optimization. Analytics are good. It has lots of themes. And it also handles affiliates. So what I mean by that is, say you have something you're selling and you want to ask others to help sell it for you, it has the ability to manage those processes. So WooCommerce is a great add-on and one to consider. BigCommerce is another one, and the neatest thing about BigCommerce is that it has the headless visuals. So you'll see here in the picture to the left, instead of just having a picture that I took with a bright light on it of this beautiful blue plaid shirt, it looks like it's on a mannequin, and you can turn it around and do different things with it. So it offers a really nice visual display. It works with WordPress. You can offer this across multiple sales channels. So, you know, your social media sites. So that's really nice. The other thing that's really good about BigCommerce is that it can handle wholesale and B2B sales. So if you're using a Wix or Weebly and, you've gotten over that 25 product segment there and you want to start offering wholesale, or you want to offer 30 products, BigCommerce is a better one to go with as you grow. Ecwid is another one. If you already have a website, it is known for being really good for integrating with Facebook and Instagram. A neat thing, if your target customers are in Britain or India or Russia or Mexico, it can offer pricing in those different languages. So that's pretty neat. And if you thought before, wow, I could never sell my product or service in those areas, maybe check out Ecwid. It might not be as hard as you think. I will say the paid version gets excellent ratings and reviews, but the free version, you're only allowed to sell up to 10 products, and it's kind of limited. Shopify is great as well. It allows you to sell on Facebook. The really cool thing about Shopify is it has 100 different payment options. So you're covering any type of payment that somebody wants to give you. The SEO is okay. Another neat thing about Shopify is they have a lot of neat marketing tools. So you can go in there and for free, you can make a logo or a slogan. So that's pretty cool. Gumroad is really good if you want to sell digital products. So if you're a speaker, an author, even if you're a retail space, I'll use the cooking example. Maybe you sell cooking utensils and items to cook with. You could do cooking demonstrations and sell those as rentals or streaming videos and charge for those. If you do a seminar, you're a speaker, you could sell workbooks, you could sell webinars. Affiliates can sell for you. You can even sell software on here that you create, and they will handle the licensing for you. They do offer a little bit of protection for your products, so putting a stamp on it to protect it. Used all around the world. So if you haven't thought about hey, maybe I could sell a webinar, or maybe I could do a workbook. There's all types of things that maybe you haven't thought of outside of your normal physical store. Squarespace is known for the point of service systems, being associated with taking the credit cards, and they've expanded to offering websites and online sales capability. They're beautiful, beautiful templates. Again, once you get above 25 products, it starts to get some glitches. It does work with TaxJar. The neat thing is, and I will say this, for any platform you're using, make sure your point of service system and the platform can talk to each other and integrate. It is a disaster if you try and have 2 sets of books or 2 sets of inventory. Don't recommend that at all. So I think I'm within the 15 minutes. Again, I'm Kriz. My information is there, and I think we're holding questions till the very end. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you guys have a great weekend. Joe?
Actually, Christine, we're actually asking questions in between speakers. So I do have a couple for you.
Okay.
And the first one is, what are some local resources that can help a business gauge the effectiveness of its online presence?
Sure. So I'll start with one. There is a free website called websitegrader.com. And that is it's free. You put in your email, you put in your website. And what I like about that is that it grades you on 3 or 4 different areas. And you can click on those areas and it will take you to another screen to tell you how to improve your score. So how they rated you and how to improve that. At the SBDC, how we differentiate between us and small business, so we don't compete with our small businesses, we offer suggestions, but we don't do. And so, for example, I know on the call right now, Michelle Coe is on, and Michelle, please feel free to help answer any questions, or if I leave anything out, please feel free to add in, because you are an expert at this. Michelle Coe has a great business, and you can find out from your chamber any of the members who offer those services.
Yeah, and I was going to mention Michelle. We also have WSI on the call. And okay, I'm saying I'm okay, I'm mute, okay. And Rich really focuses on the analytics and the SEO side of it. And actually, I know has worked some with Michelle, but that's what I was gonna say. If you don't wanna go through the process of setting these things up, like Christine has mentioned, we do have members of our chamber that can, if nothing else, walk you through it, including the SBDC. So thank you so much. Now, the other question, let me get my mouse working. The other question was sort of similar to this, but do you have a recommendation about consultants that can assist with e-store upgrades? I think we kind of answered that a little bit already, but I want to make sure it was asked.
Yeah, I would say, reach out to your chamber members and they can help you, and/or, reach out to us. We've got a list of IT professionals that we give out to people who come in to meet with us.
Excellent. Haven't gotten any other questions. So thank you so much, Christine. That was very informative, and reminding everybody that we are recording this meeting this morning. So if you have folks that would like to receive it that just couldn't be on the call, please let us know. So thanks again, Christine. Yes, you are a saint.
Oh, thanks.
Or up for something. And speaking of sainthood, our next speaker is Miss Janelle Downs, who has for many years, handled an amazing workload. She is the HR director, not just for our county, but also our public schools. And she always has a smile on her face, even with that going on. But, one of the things that we have talked a lot about especially going into phase 3, especially some of these businesses in our community that are reopening, they've got to either hire folks back or they got to hire new folks. So the HR component we know is going to be a big factor with a lot of our community, both in recovery and in reopening. So it's my great pleasure to introduce Janelle Downs.
Well, thank you so much, Joe. I was wondering how you were going to top the sainthood, so thank you. Well, thank you all very much for inviting me today. My topic that I'm supposed to go over is workforce challenges and risk mitigation as we reopen and move into phase 3. As employers, we recognize how the pandemic has impacted our business and our workplace. It came to a halt, right? I think this is week 15. It is important to address health and safety needs of the workforce and also our customers as we mitigate risk and provide resources to support staff during this time. So first, I'm going to give you some statistics. Gallagher surveyed 1,000 organizations, mostly private businesses, and gained some insights. The first insight is only 38% of employers have a formal return to work plan. So my first question is, do we have formal return to work plans, and what do they look like? Number two, 63% of employers expect to limit the number of people in their office at any given time. So you're going to see a theme as we go through my little speech here that are we looking at social distancing in our office? Do we have a limitation of who we're calling back? And three, 38% of employers have permanently adopted their new work from home policies. So what does what's next for us look like? I know, many of us are done with that term new normal. So you're going to hear me say what's next, because I think as we move through this pandemic, it's been very agile how we have had to change and relook and examine our processes. One more little tidbit is Society for Human Resources surveyed 2,278 members in the end of April. They found that 2/3 of the employers had emergency prepared plans, but only half of them did not. So did not include communicable diseases or a pandemic. So this pandemic really caught businesses and workforces, off kilter. So as we move on to what's next, we can't assume that we can work the same way we did before. So if we get caught up and we're just going to bring our employees back, nothing's changed, we're reopened, we've got to rethink that. It's time to start thinking about what have we learned and how can we input it. So as I move forward, the people who know me in this group know that I like to leave you all with things that you can take home. So I'm going to talk in threes. So kind of like a triangle, with the top of the triangle being our workforce and our business productivity. Left-hand corner, prevention, because we've got to prevent and for our customers and our workforce. And the other side is communication, because we can't be successful if we don't communicate. That is like a key trait in anything. So they're the three. So first, let's talk about our workforce. So we're coming back to work, and there's lots of questions we need to ask. And number one, I'm going to encourage each of you to be frank and honest with whether it's your customers or your workplace. As we move forward, transparency means that we're honest about all the processes we put in place are still subject to change. We've heard on the news this morning, right, that there's some hot spots where the pandemic COVID-19 exposures are higher. Well, that could only mean that down the road, what does that mean for Virginia? So anything we put in place is still subject to change. Your team will also be experiencing a wide range of emotions. You have some who are going to be really like, put me back in, I'm ready, I'm tired of being at home. And then you're going to have others that have fear and anxiety about returning. How do you handle that? Things you also should consider is, so OSHA has put out guidance, but they're not rules. The second piece, Bosch, so Virginia Occupational Health and Safety, they have put out a draft. They put it out yesterday for review. They have ranked employees into 3 groups: low, medium, and high risk. Something you should look at, because in that document, it also states what kind of safeguards you must supply your workers. So if you're in a manufacturing, how do people use your equipment? How often can other people use the equipment? If you're in an office, who all gets to use the same phones? What's your protocol for cleaning phones? Will you be providing hand sanitizer for customers if they have to walk in? So I encourage you all to look at the Virginia document that was put out yesterday. So some of your employees are going to call and say, I'm going to stay out. Well, if you've recalled them, they're not eligible for unemployment through Virginia any longer. In addition, we know that in July, that $600 of the CARES Act, which was an added boost for unemployment, will be going away. So if employees don't want to return because they don't feel safe, you should probably have a conversation with them. What does that look like? Why don't you feel safe? And what if there's someone in your workforce that you need, what accommodations can you provide? And they can be short-term accommodations. I'm not looking for something long-term where we set up an ADAA exposure. So we have to plan. Second, how are you going to fill those vacancies? Right now, we're in a virtual platform. So what kind of job fairs are you going to have? How are you going to interview? And if you decide that you really need to see that individual, what are you going to do to pull them in? Are you going to ask them safety questions like, have you been sick? Is anyone in your family sick? Do you have a fever? I know there are questions before that in HR would have probably yelled at most of you for even thinking about asking, but it's changed. We want to keep people safe, and to do that, those questions are now common versus where they weren't before. One of the things we also need to look at is leave policies and flexible options with our leave policies. So some of us may be a 2-person operation, so there may not be any leave policies. Others might have over 50 employees, so we have to look at family medical leave. The government instated the Families First Coronavirus Act, which ends December 31st, which seems that if the pandemic's still going on, the government might extend that, but that gives these 2 weeks of emergency paid leave and then also continued leave for caring for someone under the Coronavirus Act. So it's really important to read those well and to know what you might have to offer. Also, alternative schedules. You know, one of the things I think that I've liked the most about this is we can work differently. We can have people come to work and maybe work earlier or later and not be that traditional 9-to-5 model. So when we talk about bringing our employees back and social distancing so they're not exposed, it also means alternative schedules and how can we rotate people. And finally, under our workforce, well, actually 2 things. Onboarding, we used to do a lot of physical contact when we were bringing new employees on. You may want to rethink about how you're doing that. Is it something that has to be that close in contact? Can they do virtual paperwork? Can they watch training classes online? And then pay, you might want to think about how you're going to pay temporary workers. If, say, one person gets COVID positive in your workplace, and that means several other people have to go out, what are you going to do to keep your business continuity plan? Who are you going to call in to temporary, whether it's a kiosk model you have, or even just answer the phones? What's your safeguards to keep your business rolling? So all 3 of my areas overlap. Next is prevention. And I guess I'm running out of time, aren't I, Ginger? Is that a head nod or no? Yeah? Yes?
We're fine. Keep going.
Okay. Okay, so prevention and mitigation. Number 1, look at your risk management practices. The reason we keep saying wash your hands, stay home if you're sick, respiratory etiquette, is because if you are exposing other people to this illness, it not only takes out your business, but it takes out your workforce. So you as a business owner have to decide, what am I supplying at my office? Am I going to be supplying hand sanitizer, tissues? How often am I going to clean the bathrooms? You're going to want your employees to communicate self-reporting. You want them to tell you if they've been exposed or a family member. That way, then you can handle with the health department if you've had other exposures within your office. It's also really good if you have a physical location to track who's coming into your office each day. That way it can help with exposure. Mental health is also a risk. As we move into week 15, I think you've heard a lot about the huge burden that both employers as well as employees have. We need to look at options. So look at your health insurance. Fauquier Mental Health Association has a wonderful site with providers and services that can help you. And CSB, Jim LeGraft, also has trainings that you could bring on site to help with employees to talk about fear. And then face coverings. I know a lot of people don't want to talk about face coverings, but we know that face coverings slow the spread. And so if you have an office where you cannot have close proximity, you should consider wearing face shields, masks, gloves, sanitizers, etc. And then finally, communication. So to wrap this up, you know, you probably went to restaurants where in the restaurant there was a picture on the mirror that said, if you're a restaurant employee, wash your hands. And you're like, why am I here? Well, think about it. It's because it said it in the front of that employee who probably had so many things on his or her mind that they didn't think about washing their hands. We need to put physical reminders in our workplace, whether it's social distancing, whether it's wash your hands, whether it's wearing a face mask, because those do help us stay in reality of the moment, because all of us want to go back to where we were before. Look at Center for Disease Control and Prevention recommendations. I go there daily because just like everything else, they change on how we should clean our offices after an exposure. They also give us really good ideas where hotspots are and if we have to put people who visited hotspots out of work. And then training. Please remember, training our employees and our customers is the best way to prevent and slow the spread of COVID-19. Whew. I was fast, but
You definitely covered a lot. And it's great information. I mean, we've got a couple questions, but I have one question. Just, you know, from an HR standpoint, my middle daughter's mother-in-law was tested positive for COVID, went through, you know, the 14-day protocol, it was asymptomatic. And a month after she was initially tested, she was getting a colonoscopy and got tested, and they had to test her again before the procedure, and she got tested positive again. What is there a protocol? Is there something in place for someone that has been tested, has gone through their quarantine, and is able to come back in the workplace? Is there a protocol? Do they have to have a temperature taken every day? Give us some insight on that.
So remember that the COVID-19 test is a cross section in time. So if you've been exposed and you go get a rapid test and they say that you're negative, you could still have symptoms after that point. Also, after you've been deemed positive with COVID-19, you could test positive for the next 14 to 30 days. So workplaces all over across the United States are struggling with whether they should have all their employees tested. And I don't think there's a good answer yet for that, because since it's just that moment in time with the testing, it's hard to make that decision. So we have an occupational health doctor on staff, and we have decided not to test employees to return to work. We've chose to use the protocol of quarantine for 14 days. And at the end of that 14 days, if they've been fever-free, cough-free, and there's a third one, fever and no symptom-free, they can return to work. If they have been living with someone who is positive with COVID-19, to quarantine them. And if they test, or they would get tested, if they test negative after 70, it's still 14 days, but then they can return. There's not those three things about the fever and the symptom-free. So I hope that answered the question, Joe.
Yeah.
It's still a lot of unknowns. I know a lot of people want to do the antibody test, but I think they don't know enough about that still and how that's going to work into the workplace.
Yeah. I was actually, before I had my hip surgery, I was tested negative, but they just tested for COVID. They did not do the antibodies.
Okay.
So I was kind of hoping they would, just to know if I had it earlier, but
right.
Anyway, we also have a question. Let's see, the first one is, do you have, okay, where can we find the OSHA document of employment safety guidelines?
So if you go to OSHA, I have a copy. They have a little tab that says the guidelines for workplace COVID-19. So you just go to DOL, Occupational Health and Safety. The Virginia document, that is, I can send a link you all can send out.
Yeah.
And that has not been voted on, but they did have a discussion on, I guess today's Friday, so Wednesday, and then they published a draft document Thursday.
Yeah, if you can pop that into the chat, that'd be great.
Okay.
The next question is, do you have suggestions about handling employees who went on vacation?
So right now, with us returning to work and going to phase 3, the CDC hasn't released any guidelines for that. But as you can start to tell with them saying on the news that there's hot spots, we do believe that CDC will provide more guidance. I think on Thursday, New York said that if you had gone to any hotspots, you had to quarantine for 2 weeks when you returned to New York. So I would say in Virginia, let's stand by and wait and see. But right now, there's not hotspots. But employers, especially employers in the medical field, they can tell their employees to quarantine if there's telework options, if they don't feel safe when the employee returns. We just don't want to be discriminatory in any nature, right? We just want to make sure that people are safe.
Excellent. I'm not seeing any other questions, so I wanted to thank you. And speaking of the staggering, I will let folks on the call know that scheduled as of now, we are returning to our offices in the Path Foundation building on July 1st. However, we will be entering on a staggered schedule just because they don't want everybody in the building or too many people in the building at once. So if you do want to meet with myself or Sylvia or Carlton and Ginger, please reach out to us and schedule a time to meet us so we make sure that we are in the office. So we're real excited about getting back in there and getting back to a physical presence of some sort. Does anyone else have any other questions for any of our speakers? And maybe Carlton and Ginger, we can do it by a show of hands. Let me get to my gallery view. And then y'all can unmute them if they do. And I'm hearing crickets. I think everybody wants to get going with their Friday. Okay, and with that, oh, yes, Miles. Can you I'll unmute you, hold on.
I got him, Joe.
Oh, okay, thank you. Still looks muted.
Yeah, I sent him the request.
There you
Okay.
go.
I say people have been trying to mute me for years, Joe, so you finally found a way. Now, I just wanted to thank the Chamber, all of you on the task force who put all this work in. Excluding my own presentation, I thought the presentations were excellent and appreciate all the work that obviously went into them. And again, all the people that have come together. I mean, events like this have come largely because of the kind of cooperation, communication that I talked about earlier. I can't emphasize it enough. So, and if there are people who are looking for ways to get involved, you can do so through the Chamber. You can also reach out to our office because I'm involved pretty much 3 days a week at least in multiple calls that started because people just started talking to each other. So, and thank you, Joe, for all you do.
Thank you, Miles. All right, any other questions? Great, thank you so much for being on this call. Thank you for so much to our speakers. Thanks again to Ray and Atlantic Union Bank for being our sponsor. And really thank you all for being part of this wonderful chamber. And like I mentioned a couple of times, we did record this. So if you talk to people that really wanted to be on the call, let us know so we can share the recording with them. So with that, go out and make it a great chamber day. Thanks so much.